Hey folks, it's Lev. Welcome back to another video. For those of you who are new, I'm using pronouns. I did get a haircut, yes. It's been 3 months since I last got a haircut. It got starting to get really long, so I didn't want it to get long because it makes me feel dysphoric, so I just got a haircut, and I also got my third testosterone injection today, which is really cool. Um, I'm gonna try and make this video under 15 minutes. I want to challenge myself and make it under 15 minutes. Um, I wanted to talk about communication and emotional maturity. So I want to talk a little bit about my experiences with, I guess, emotional immaturity, for lack of a better word, when I was younger and not really knowing how to deal with emotions and stuff. So I still have my Instagram account from when I was like 16, and it was a fan account. So I was part of a fandom. Really love this band. Hardcore fan. I'm not a hardcore fan anymore, but when I was younger, I was a hardcore fan of this band. And going back and looking at my Instagram posts, I didn't really know how to deal with my emotions, and I wasn't fully aware of what was actually happening to me, as in emotionally. It's just like this emotional tank that keeps manifesting and blowing up and affecting different domains of my life, but I didn't really put words to how I felt, the nor did I realize how much it was basically messing up my life. I also didn't really have many healthy coping mechanisms for my emotions, and I I lashed out on Instagram. Firstly, I was very sensitive to things. Like if someone said something to offend the band I loved, I was just like full on raging. And I made that known on Instagram with my posts, giving people the bird. I I lashed out at people a lot, even like 2 years ago, like young adult. I'm still in young adulthood, but even 2 years ago, I still lashed out at people because it was just all these emotions boiling up inside me, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So that manifested in lashing out at people. Um, Without actually, I didn't have the intention of, you annoyed me, so I'm gonna lash out at you and hurt you. It was more unintentional, not really knowing how to deal with my emotions, and it was something. It was a weakness of mine per se, not knowing how to deal with emotions, not really having the language to put to my emotions, and it was a long journey of trying to wrestle with my emotions and deal with it in a more healthy and mature way. And that's happened. It's still happening, and it. But I'm at a better point in my life now. But back then, it was just really bad, and it's just over the years I had to learn how to tame my emotions, essentially. And during my teenage years, especially, I really believed in the concept of getting back at people. Like someone hurt me, someone mistreated me, or someone hurt or mistreated someone I cared about, or that band I really loved. I was quite not like super serious, but I tried to get back at people for doing that. And that, looking back at it now, is just not the best way to deal with problems. And I based my actions on how I was feeling more so than what's the most logical way I can manage this situation. Another thing about my former emotional immaturity is that I used to hold a lot of grudges against people. Like, I was just secretly bitter at them, but I don't know if they knew. I don't know. I don't think I told people, but I was like secretly bitter at them and just carrying this bitterness and grudge everywhere I went. And that's also not a very emotionally mature or healthy way of dealing with difficult situations and difficult and people who hurt me. In a nutshell, all my emotions were drowning me and essentially taking the steering wheel of what I choose to do and how I choose to respond to situations more so than my logical brain, which is like the prefrontal cortex area. That's where the higher order functioning happens, as in like cognition, memory, thinking, um, problem solving, decision making. All of those psychological processes happen in the frontal lobe, but more so the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain right behind our what is this called again? Forehead. I just my biology just went blank. Behind here, right behind here. That's where our prefrontal cortex lies. And I think it's actually the last part of the brain to develop. I think the brain develops from the brainstem back to the back of the visual. Oh God, I forgot the visual area. Then there's the somatosensory area, the motor skills, and then the prefrontal cortex is the last place to develop. So it's like back to front brain development from memory. Yes, I linking my experiences like with all of these difficult emotions with communication and interacting with other people. I in my work especially I take a trauma informed approach to care, as in basically all of us, every human being on earth has been wounded in some way or another. I mean, psychologically and emotionally wounded. Maybe it's not it's small, maybe it's big, but to a degree, every single one of us has been wounded before, and we all carry some sort of trauma, whether it's like something that happened directly to us, could be vicarious trauma, it could be something more subtle and we don't know that it's actually affecting us, but it is. For example, the way society is structured. I'm using my trans example. So it's very, most people are cisgender and heterosexual, and it's very, the world we live in is very orientated towards people who are cisgender heterosexual, um, more so than trans and gender diverse people and LGBTIQ plus people. So that's something more subtle, but it can get quite sinister in it, in the way that it affects us psychologically and emotionally. Just knowing that like we've all been wounded some way, and the way people talk to me or the way people behave or the way people treat me may be like a manifestation of things that they've been struggling with inside internally, or emotions that have been bottled up for so long and people just don't like it, they need an outlet to get it out. Or people may behave in a certain way because of traumatic experiences, and they've learned that this is how I cope with things, and we don't see eye to eye because we've both live in we both have different lived experiences. Even if we live on the same planet, all of our experiences differ. And I guess linking this to emotional maturity is seeing this and not like hating the person for behaving in a way or talking to me in a certain way. What I think is, what happened to you? What happened to you in your life? What have you been through that may be leading you to behave in this way, talk to me in this way, etc., rather than being like just straight up attacking the person. Because again, we've all been wounded and we all have trauma in some form or another, and just realizing that we all hurting, and taking a more kind approach, that to me is emotional maturity, not trying to get back at people or yelling at people because they're yelling at me. I'm not saying I'm immune to this thing, like it happens still, but I'm constantly working on it. Like sometimes someone yells at me or says something to me and I get triggered or I get really defensive, and my emotions just sort of spur and my logical brain shuts down and I just am very defensive, and I get into a heated, not so much an argument. I raise my voice. I get heated because some part of me feels threatened. And I also am aware that, not everyone has the language to put to how they feel. Not everyone has the language or knows the language to describe the experiences, communicate the experiences to other humans. And sometimes difficult emotions, such as someone feeling angry or shame or guilt or something that's considered more challenging, it may be a manifestation, and it may be a way of the person trying to communicate to me or to us that my needs are not being met. My needs are not being met. And everyone just sort of pushes me. And this is a hypothetical situation. Like, everyone just pushes me away because I come off as being angry and intimidating, while in reality I am really hurting inside, and I'm lacking connection, or I'm lacking these things in my life, and I just feel very lost, but I don't know how to communicate this to people, and it shows up in my anger and intimidation, but that's not my intention at all. Again, that's just a hypothetical situation. That's what I think. Um, it can be a So that's why when I look at people who may be behaving aggressively on stuff like that, and or behave in ways that society sees as taboo or stigmatizes or shuns, I'm thinking, you poor soul, like something has happened to you throughout your life, or things have happened to you throughout your life that has led you to this point. And yeah, speaking about the needs, reinforcing that with my own experience in um 2019, end of 2019, when my gender dysphoria started getting worse and worse, I I did lash out at people a lot. And looking back at it now, the reason I kept lashing out at people unintentionally, and like, even though they did nothing to me, and I was just lashing out at them for something so insignificantly small, is because I was very uncomfortable in of myself. My gender dysphoria is bad. I was fighting with myself, denying my truth, as in afraid to accept that I am FTM trans, or I'm not cisgender at least. Um, and the need I was missing is accepting my truth and starting to live my truth rather than live as someone I'm not. That was severely lacking. And in turn, this sinister, this it was sinister, and it slowly crept its way into my emotions and the way I live my life. And I don't want to live my life lashing out at people because I am not okay myself. This emotional maturity and communication ties in together, because if we don't start talking to each other and instead just keep attacking each other for our behavior or how we may be feeling in the moment, rather than sitting down, having a deeper conversation about, okay, I don't appreciate you yelling at me or behaving or treating me this way. But I want to know what happened to you, or just opening the doors for people to talk about the difficult experiences, rather than being shut down, pushed away by society because they don't behave in a way that's expected, or it can be considered disrespectful. And I'm just thinking about this in terms of like couples, for example. Whenever I hear about or see something on the internet about two people arguing, or actually witnessed it in my extended family, um, they just raging at each other and swearing at each other. And then I think to myself, what is the actual problem here? What is the actual underlying problem that has led to this moment? And usually, or I don't know about usually, sometimes it's just something so small that's been taken out of context, for example, or blown up into something that it's not. And then it just feeds to people going at each other full on, and not really listening to each other because the emotions are just taking control of the wheel, and their logical brain is shut down, and they're not communicating to each other properly, because they don't know how to I guess, control and regulate their emotions. Another example of having emotional maturity for me is, knowing that someone hurt me and acknowledging that, yes, I did feel angry when you did this, and I felt hurt when you did this, but not holding a grudge against the person, and acknowledging that, yes, they've been through trauma and they are hurting, and this behavior may just be a projection of that hurt. Um, and not letting anger and resentment and bitterness take control of me, take control of my life, acknowledging, yes, I feel this way, and then learning how to let go and being mature about what I choose to do. Like, I'm not saying if someone's toxic, you can't kick them out of your life and shut the door behind it and lock it. That's what I did. Like, I opened the door, kicked them out, shut it, and locked the door again, not letting them back in. But I don't, I don't hold a grudge, and I don't verbally or psychologically or emotionally attack the person for behaving in that way. And that's emotional maturity for me as well, being the bigger person, knowing that someone hurt you, but you're not gonna hurt them back just because they hurt you. Knowing that as well. Another way to put it is, one part of emotional maturity is for me is, if someone treats me like garbage, I'm not gonna sink down to that level and treat someone else like garbage just because I have been treated like garbage. That's another way that emotional maturity manifests for me. I guess the conclusion of this video is that, yes, we all experience emotions. Yes, sometimes we do things that we regret, or we unintentionally behave in ways that may hurt other people. But also, we gotta add, like, knowing that we did something and then acknowledging that we did it, and recognizing how that our behavior may have impacted other people, and taking perspective, like perspective taking, is also very important. I guess leveraging our mistakes and things that have not worked so well in the past to better ourselves as human beings is very important. And the other conclusion is, we are all hurting. Everyone is hurt. Everyone is wounded by life. Everyone carries some form of trauma, whether we realize it or not. And if we recognize that, we are just trying to survive life and do the best we can with with the cards we've been dealt, and talking to each other with empathy and kindness rather than attack each other based on our emotions, it would just make the world a better place. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you in the next video.